What happened? Where am I?
Are you okay? Can we help you?
I was knocked out and now I do not know where I am. Everything looks different.
Where are you going?
I don't know. Nowhere right now.
This is Bob Banger.
Hello.
And this is Howie Historian.
Hello.
And I am Miguel Murray. And what is your name?
Benjamin, that is. Benjamin Franklin. But everyone calls me Ben.
Are you an actor? Your clothes looks like they are from the American colonial time.
Well, for me the year is 1790, and all of your clothes appear strange too, like they are from the future.
Well, Ben, it is now 224 years later in 2014.
My gosh, that lightning bolt must have sent me to the future. I want to see everything.
My car is over here. Let's go for a ride and see things.
A horseless carriage? Does this thing really move?
Yes, it has what we call an engine, which allows this horseless carriage to move.
How come some of these homes and stores are empty, and the holes in the road are not filled?
The people living in these homes had mortgages and they did not find sufficient work to pay for living in those homes, and the city does not have the money to fix potholes right away. Some people are just moving away.
Unbelievable. What have we seen from this horseless carriage? Reminds me of my youth when I first went to Philadelphia in 1723. There were empty homes and stores and people were moving away. But that changed when our government, the Pennsylvania Assembly, created Act 261.
What happened?
In Pennsylvania that year, we printed paper money for the first time. The Assembly loaned about 80% of the money, called bills of credit, at a 5% interest rate into circulation and spent about 20% of the money directly on building and maintaining roads and doing other public work to help around Philadelphia.
I just looked up under Statutes of Pennsylvania, Act 261. It says, the aforesaid bills of credit are chiefly intended for the benefit of the poor, industrious sort of people of this province at an easy interest rate to relieve them from the present difficulties they labor under.
How did you do that?
Oh, I have a smartphone. It allows me to talk to people far away and look up information.
That's great. Yes, that law allowed farmers to cut timber and have it transported to shipyards to help make ships. The farmers could then pay back the loans to buy seed and crops and metal goods from England, and many other things. Also, with the government earning the 5% interest from the loaned money, it amounted to £1,600 that year and earned interest every year afterward until 1776.
How did the government use this money, Ben?
They gave about £800 to the Crown of England, which was used mostly by the English Navy to buy hemp rope and other supplies from us. They used about £400 to keep peace with the Native Americans so that settlers could expand into their territory. And they used the remaining money for roads, other building projects, and costs involved with printing, storing, and loaning out money.
Was there a point when too much money came into circulation, which today we call inflation?
No, for a short time during the French-Indian War, there was inflation, but after that year, the war, inflation was put under control by taking paper money out of circulation. In the beginning, before the Assembly issued money in 1723, they were very worried about how much money to issue. In the colonies north of us, they issued a lot of money to fight wars. Part of the effect was that the prices for goods went up and people coveted gold and silver more than paper money. Therefore, paper money lost some of its value.
Is that what happened in Pennsylvania?
No. At first, the Assembly issued a small amount, about £15,000. Also, since we were not going to spend the money into circulation paying for a war, but make it available to everybody as a loan, the Assembly asked for a 5% interest rate for the borrower to back the money by the value of their land.
Does that mean if some farmer who borrowed money could not repay the loan, they would lose their land?
Yes, but the Assembly would only loan a person up to 1/3 the value of their house and half the value of their land. In this way, if the loan went completely bad and the land or house was sold to repay the loan, the borrower would still have value left over and might not be destitute.
So the money was pretty safe from losing its value.
Yes, I wrote about this later in 1729 and called it coined land.
So was 15,000 pounds enough to meet the needs of the people?
No, it turned out that there was a great demand. The assembly decided to issue another $25,000 or pounds that same year. And all of this money had a tremendously good effect. People were industrious and started growing as a community.
So everybody was happy ever after?
No, after the paper money was paid back, we would burn it out of existence. Also, we were growing as a community and more people were settling into Philadelphia and the surrounding counties. We found out that we needed money to loan and spend into circulation. So in 1726, we passed another law to stop burning paper money as it was being paid, and we would loan the paper money back out into circulation.
Did this action solve the problem?
It helped, but there was not enough money in circulation to keep up with the growing community. Also, some well-to-do and influential people were on record as not approving paper money. This is why I wrote a paper entitled A Modest Inquiry into the Nature and Necessity of a Paper Currency. It basically argued that we needed a medium of exchange money to help move goods and services, not too much and not too little. Before I wrote this paper, we were again experiencing having too little money into circulation. We had the work, the resources, and the work that needed to get done, but we did not have enough money.
Today, we call that gross domestic product gap or GDP gap. We have experienced it a lot recently. We have the workers and resources, and the Society of Professional Engineers says we need $3.6 trillion by 2020 to get our country up to average in the repair of our bridges, levees, canals, roads, schools, and even more. Right now, they say our efforts are nearly a failure. What we are missing though is the money.
Well, I can feel the bumpy road and see the empty stores, and I can hear what you are saying. Let me ask you, why does not the government create the money and loan and spend the money into circulation so that everyone can help make society better?
It should be that way, and our Constitution says that Congress shall have the power to coin money, but over the years, the bankers took over this power.
There is my old neighborhood school. Let's park the car and see what we can find in the media center.
This school looks huge and magnificent. Look at all of this. What type of machinery is this?
This is a machine called computer. We use it to get information and make papers on the copy machine.
How long does it take to print your work?
10 pages in a minute.
Yeah, we have a printer over there too, so that's how it all works.
Back in my days, this would take days.
Well, let's go sit down and we'll talk about things. Here's a computer for me.
But back to our conversation. I was one of the known persons to support the basic idea that Congress, like the Colonial Assembly meeting before it, has to have the right to coin the money. But tell me, how did the banks take over this right belonging specifically to the Congress?
It is a long story involving starting with the creation of two national banks, one after another, but it was too much private and foreign control. We did not renew their charters to continue. Also, the citizens had not learned the good lessons from the Pennsylvania experience, and these banks never worked to their potential.
Then what happened?
Well, the states chartered private banks, and many of them were greedy and created too much money. At times, there were ones on the banks where depositors tried to get their money out of the bank. Some of these banks were called wildcat banks because they would then leave town without honoring the people's deposits.
That should have been a big lesson.
It certainly helped the people to see how bankers could be greedy. Then came the United States Civil War. One of the big reasons for this war was the issue of slavery, and we abolished it at this time.
That was good. Did the government create money for that war?
Yes, during the Civil War, we set up a national currency and printed greenbacks, which was paper money issued by Congress just like you did in Pennsylvania during the French and Indian War. At both times, the money was not backed by land in the form of a loan, but simply issued by the state and spent into circulation. People accepted this money just like in your time. You could pay your taxes and your private debts with this money.
Well, this is exactly correct. People should have learned and understood how money should work to help better society.
Yeah, look at the sad pictures of the Civil War. Imagine if after that war they created new greenbacks for peaceful projects.
Yes, but the people were up against the bankers who wanted to remove greenbacks from circulation so they, and not the government, could control the loaning of money into society.
What happened? The citizens should have fought back like we did in 1723 and 1729.
Small groups of people all around the country did this and organized into little political parties, People's Party, Populist Party, Greenback Party, and more. They even organized and elected representatives and then put up people to run for president.
Fantastic. Then what happened?
I just looked up the Greenback Party and found something important on that. A fellow ran for president. His name was Peter Cooper in 1876. And he declared at the convention that the paper currency, commonly called legal tenders or greenbacks, was actually paid out for the value received as so much gold when gold cannot be obtained. But whether our currency will always be on par with gold or not, the commercial and industrial prosperity of a country do not depend upon the amount of gold and silver there is in circulation. Our prosperity must continually depend upon the industry, the enterprise, and the busy internal trade, and the true independence of foreign nations, which a paper circulation, well, based on credit, has always been found to promote.
He spoke with the same intention about gold and silver and the need for paper money as I did in my modest inquiry paper.
I also found this from 1892. James Weaver ran for president on the People's Party platform. It states right on their poster, "We demand a national currency, safe, sound, and flexible, issued by the general government only. A full legal tender for all debts, public and private, and then without the use of banking corporations."
Yes, these people knew what they were talking about and were headed on the right path for all the people, not just the rich and powerful. What happened?
They did not have the funds and publicity to become a full national party equal to the Republicans and the Democrats, and two big parties were too controlled by moneyed interests.
Sorry to hear that.
In the meantime, there were more bank failures. Things wobbled along until 1913 when the Federal Reserve Act was passed.
Tell me about this Federal Reserve Act.
Well, it helped unite all the banks in the country as a whole and create regional Federal Reserve banks acting as central banks for bankers. This stopped the problem of wildcat banks swindling depositors and moving away. It set up a payments system between banks, and importantly, it became the place where new money was created. Money was also being multiplied by bankers making loans.
How did the money get multiplied?
Person A deposited $1,111 into Bank W. Banker W created $1,000 and lent it to the person B. Person B borrowed the money for a reason and spent that money paying person C, D, and E for goods and services. When persons C, D, and E earned that money, they deposited it into their banks X, Y, and Z. Then, just like what Bank W did with persons B's deposit banks, X, Y, and Z were then allowed to loan more creative money based on these secondary deposits. This keeps repeating itself, and the original money gets multiplied.
Here's a picture I found of the money multiplying that the banks do.
Interesting. Banks are now places where the monies are created through loans. How does the Federal Reserve Act create money?
Easy. Just imagine the Federal Reserve has a magic bank account. In this bank account is any amount of money they want. To get this money, they just simply have to spend it out into the real world.
How do they spend it?
They buy U.S. government bonds from banks, or worse, they can buy improperly made loans that banks no longer want to be responsible for and do not find sufficiently profitable. These are called toxic securities.
Toxic securities are bad enough. But what I do not understand is why the U.S. Treasury has to create its own debt and pay interest on that debt to others instead of simply creating the money itself.
There is no good answer for that question. However, after the banks and Federal Reserve take earnings based on handling these transactions, the Federal Reserve for its part gives its profits back to the federal government. But these profits are very small compared to the money that is needed to put people to work.
Very interesting. I just can't get past with the fact that the U.S. Treasury, acting at the bequest of Congress to issue bonds, which pay interest to others, not being able to create the money itself to help benefit society.
Your concern is justified. Less than 20 years after the Federal Reserve Act was passed, we had a Great Depression. We did not have this Great Depression because the Great Disease was spreading around the country, or because we did not have the people wanting to work, or because we did not have the resources. We had this Great Depression because there was too much speculation within the bank and financial sectors of the economy. When that speculation in the private sector of the economy collapsed because too many people no longer had faith in that speculation, the money multiplier that I described earlier collapsed on itself. And in the next few years, 1/3 of our banks had to close its doors. This happened all because the Federal Reserve did not know how to regulate and choose not to create money and get it into circulation.
But that should have been the very time that citizens demanded that the government create money for public works, or for the government to loan new created money to businesses and individuals who could put it to use, just like in my colonial Pennsylvania.
I love to talking about me hungry. I'll order a pizza. The refrigerator with Ben. I'll be back.
That sounds great. Thanks a lot. I could go for a pizza.
He knows here. He said that.
Again, you're absolutely right. We did not have enough people to demand of government to create money for work. We had lost the historical knowledge of how the greenbacks had worked, or how the Pennsylvania paper money worked back in your time for peace and to give people work who desired it.
I hope the people didn't suffer too bad.
Well, it was quite bad. Just look at these pictures. We did not get out of the Great Depression for about 10 years until there was another great war. We needed to organize immediately for war, and to do this, the bankers and government worked together to create all the money that was needed to put everyone to work. They even created extra money beyond what people could work for, and because of that, there was inflation during the war. Also, we were learning again that war just blows things up and destroys, and forgot about how government can create money, like in Pennsylvania in the 1730s and 1740s, for a beautiful prosperity without war.
Yes, I remember well visiting families in different parts of Pennsylvania and noting how they were content and becoming more educated. Getting back to the history of today, what happened after this great war? Did the people learn the lessons from understanding the nature of money?
No. It seemed by the time of the Great Depression and afterward that those who had the interest of bankers in mind had won the day by saying how complicated and mysterious money was, and the government could not be trusted with such a power. After this last great war in the 1940s and 1950s, government still had strong taxing powers and could extract needed revenues from corporations and individuals to run a fairly decent government for the people.
While the Crown and the colonies both knew not to trust private banking. Nonetheless, how did society get into today's situation where we are seeing plenty of despair?
Since the 1950s until now, there has been a gradual lessening of taxes on corporations, a lessening of taxes on the rich, and both of those coupled with the government not being able to create money to put people to work in our society. Also, the banks have interpreted the accounting laws and rules more in their favor over the last century that they too, practically speaking, can create money whenever they want. The result is the despair you see today.
I'm just wondering how to save this situation. Could the Federal Reserve just create the money and give it to the government and tell the banks that they can no longer create money?
Yes, this could be done. We would have to let banks fail and tell depositors that if they want to put their money in banks and earn interest, that their money was at risk of being lost. Therefore, if a bank fails, it could be closed.
What about people with deposits who do not want interest but just want their money to be kept safe?
This could be easily arranged. This type of deposit is called an on-demand deposit, and the depositor could pay a fee for various services and of putting money in and taking money out of this type of account. Banks would not be able to lend this money out. It would simply be in storage for the depositor.
What about people with deposits who want to earn interest?
If a depositor had excess money and they wanted to take some risk and earn interest, they could move the money into a time deposit account where they would no longer have immediate access to their money, and the interest rate could be matched to the risk the depositor would be willing to accept.
It seems that if a time deposit was truly a deposit that had to be kept in until other time deposit money replaced it or the risk-related loan was paid back, then that would prevent the money multiplier effect you mentioned earlier. Would that be correct?
Exactly.
Then the Federal Reserve or government would have to create new money to loan or spend into circulation, or you would be in a situation that we were back in Pennsylvania in 1723, 1726, and 1729.
Yes, Congress would have to pass a law allowing for a public administration of money that would be monitored based on persons desiring work where they lived or were willing to move and the resources available to be put to use.
The picture here is
What is that?
Well, that's what we call, that's like Italian cookie. It's like bread with tomato sauce and ingredients on top of it.
I have been learning Italian and it looks like one of their foods.
Yeah, it tastes bread. So let's try some. Okay.
So it looks like we have a good understanding of our situation today with money and banking.
Let's summarize. We need a public or government administration of money, and no creating or multiplying of money by the banks, and the willingness of the government to create money for the benefit of the people wanting to find work and thereby help society.
Funny, I just looked up those three qualities and found references to the NEED Act, the American Monetary Institute, positive money in England, and sovereign money in Germany.
Now I feel good again seeing what we can learn from our past year going forward. Good luck. And if I can get back to my past, I might give this kite string to a friend, Thomas Paine. He might have a calling here.
Look, there's lightning again in the sky. Ben, where are you going?
Ben is outside and just found the same string that was attached to the kite and key. He is sending it up in the air, and lightning has struck it, and he is gone.